Shear Darkness, the Town by the Ocean, by Onijia Jones.
Yo, pick up the phone, Adam. It's Dashawn. Brah, come on, I got you the cell so we can talk. Damn, man, I don't even like talking on this thing. I'll switch to the pay phone later. If you call me by then, it'll save me a trip downtown. Yo, Adam, come on, man. Seriously, man, you better be dead if you ain't answering. I shouldn't even play like that. Look, brah, I'm just trying to keep you on the up and up. Okay? About a few days ago, I was over my auntie's place watching my little cousin. We was just on the game. I was whooping, obviously, when I think I hear a knock on the door. I go and check, and you know what I find? An envelope with my name on it. I open the thing up, and in little letters it says, "Come to the diner. Sooner the better." Delphi C., Adam, I told you she liked me. I told you. Talking about she never gives her name out. I asked the girl her name and she gave it. You're just an unsociable som bitch. Anyway. Takes me a couple days to get out to the diner. Oh, yay. Ran into Linko on her way coming out. She says, "Hey, by the way, I think she headed south. Something about a spook. You know I don't do ghosts." So I get in, give my order to Mac in the kitchen, and then slide into Dell's booth. Man, you should have seen Dell. I think she put on perfume. I put on the Jackson charm, and I think I made out a smile under all that hair of hers. Now she tells me I'm supposed to go to a town by the name of Knuford. A fishing village, she tells me. By the ocean. Never been to the ocean. Dell says I should bring a gun. You know that's never a good sign. You know, I've come to realize what getting a gun means. It means I gotta fight something real. Something with claws. Something that bleeds. Something that hunts. You know me? I like dealing with magic shit. It's malicious but not purposeful. Just kinda what it is. I told Dell that, same words and everything. Can you believe the girl laughed, giggled? It was kinda cute, in a morbid sense. We talked for a bit longer, then Hold up, I got a call back. Forgot to bring enough quarters. Alright, I'm back. Got enough change to last all night. I ever tell you I used to love the night when I was little? It was so quiet. So quiet I could hear the city. It was just the sound of the wind blowing through the buildings. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yay. Knuford. That place was off the map. Took me like 3 days of driving up and down the eastern seaboard before I even got a hint of it. Would never have found it if I hadn't stopped in this little restaurant off the road. Should have seen it, man. The sound of the ocean coming in hard on the cliffs and just a horizon of dark water. Not a bad place to live or die. Anyway, I go in. I'm the only black guy there, so I start scratching at the tattoo on my right hand. You never saw it. It was a flame. A black flame. Like the shadow of a flame right there on the back of my hand. I order some pancakes, milk, and bacon. The locals are the kind of fellas you'd imagine. Old salty white guys with 1,000-yard stares. I think that's what you'll look like when you get that old, Adam. And shut up, you will get that old. I hope. The waitress is the youngest one in the joint. She asks me about myself while she's refilling my cup of milk. Asks where I'm from, where I'm going. Now, I'd heard a bunch of stories about black boys getting friendly with white girls, so I try not to get too cordial, especially when I see this old guy eyeing me up from a table in the corner. I keep things simple, ignore her first question and answer the second. You could hear a pin drop the moment said Knuford. The waitress, now she overflows the milk in my cup, and the few men in the place not looking at me turn my way. Now you got to remember, I am strapped, and I am not afraid to piece everyone in that room out. I tell you, Adam, The only thing that made a cold chill run up my spine was when I heard that old guy's voice. You ever heard a cat at night? That low, high-pitched growl? It's like nature's natural bullet. The old guy had a voice like that.
You don't want to go to Noford, boy,
The old guy says. Never got a good look at He picked the perfect place with the perfect shadows. Couldn't see his eyes, but I could see his shape, like a vulture. Now I don't like being called boy, but I'd prefer to walk out of the place without any altercations. So turned to the guy, try and look him in the eye. Failed. Tried to look cool anyway. Might be true, I tell the old bastard, but I'm gonna find my way there eventually, mister.
You're a persistent sumbitch. Some might call that admirable, but when it comes to that town, boy, you best turn yellow belly.
You seem to know a lot about that place. The old man got quiet for a long, long time. He drank his coffee, all nonchalant. But I could tell, just feel it. He wanted to speak up. Had to. That's the thing about evil. It's like a virus. Once it gets in you, even when you don't think it affects you, you're messed up. Because now you're a carrier.
I was born in Newford,
The old man finally says. It got quiet again.
I was about your age when a preacher came into town. He had a big smile, black clothes, and eyes that just didn't seem right. I remember how he went door to door, like one of them Jehovah Witnesses. He had a black book under the crook of his arm, but it weren't no Bible. I was sure of that. He set up a church out of an old barn near the water. He had a small congregation, I heard at the start. Nothing but the town drunk and the harlot who lived by the docks. But it spread somehow, like a plague. But was slow, mind you. We all went to church in the middle of town, St. Mary's blood. Catholic stock we were. Not everyone went on Sunday, but we were good God-fearing folk, I'll tell you that. But if it wasn't for that preacher and that damned storm, God.
The old-timer shook his head.
He came to St. Mary's one Sunday. It looked like the end times outside, all black, winds howling like the wail of every damned soul in hell. Sat in the back of the church with the drunk and the harlot. I remember them wearing these wrong smiles on their faces. The preacher stood up in the middle of the priest's sermon. I'll never forget it was about having faith during dark times. The preacher, he said that we were all sinners, that it wasn't some filth that could be washed from us with prayer. Sin was the burden that God had bestowed on us.
The old man lifted his hands. Adam, I swear I could see the book before he spoke. The old man said the preacher lifted his black book. Thunder struck the church so hard that the building shook and the roof came in. The old man said that the rain and wind that poured in seemed to flow around the preacher then. After that night, the preacher gained even more parishioners. The town began to change after that. I asked him how. He told me a little story about his neighbor. She was a kind lady across the street who lived with her mother. She'd never married, and was a timid girl who didn't dress provocatively. She'd seen the preacher the night of the storm and started going to his church. Afterwards, she started walking around naked, said that she was living as God had Eve. The local store clerk was a good man, who'd always handed out candy to the kids after that night and the storm. Anyone still left in the town didn't let their kids around him anymore. The town priest ended up burning down the church. After that, the old man left the town and never looked back. He tried at least. He said,
All these years later, I still feel it. Like Noford's calling me home. Some days I find myself driving and end up heading up the road towards it without even realizing. You're not the first who's felt Newford's call. I've seen far too many go up that road and never come back. Take my advice, son. Stay away from that place.
I wanted to go. Just leave. Go home, close my door, and go to sleep. But you know me, Adam. I smiled. My food came. With all eyes on me, I soaked my pancakes in syrup, chewed my bacon, and drank my glass of milk. Wiped my mouth, paid my due, gave the waitress a fat tip, and then headed out the door. But just as I was leaving, the old man said something. It made me turn around. The old man had moved out of the dark, just enough that I got a clean look at his eyes from across the restaurant. One eye was young and as blue as the day he came out as Mama. The other was just gone. A black void he let show to the world. He pointed a thumb at that wrong eye and said,
I did this the day after I left Newford. Just as me and my folks were packing up, the preacher paid us a visit. He said that it was a shame we were leaving, that the town would miss us, but that we shouldn't worry. Newford would always be our home, that it would always have its eye on us.
I'll tell you this, Adam. I could see it. The car half packed on the driveway, boxes still on the ground. The preacher dressed in all black, as tall and wide as a stretched shadow cast against a light post at night. When the old man said those words, I swear, that preacher wasn't talking to him. No, not him. I wonder, if I tore my eye out, would that wash away the image of him that seared into my mind? I'm kidding. Adam, I'm gonna go get something to eat. I'll call back in a little bit. Yo, Adam, I'm back. Brah, next time you in town, remind me to take you to this decent Puerto Rican place. They do this thing with beef and chicken stock. Oh my God, it's so good. Okay, where was I? Yeah. I got on the right road. After hearing the old-timer's story, it all just seemed to click, you know? The town, the preacher. The darkness wanted me. It was calling me home. Newford. Whatever it had been was gone. What it was now was a beacon. I couldn't find it, because it didn't want me to find it. Not at first, but whatever was left in that old man in Newford. It got my scent as surely as I got its. You ever felt compelled to do something, Adam? Like your muscles were being pulled like the strings of a puppet? It's not a good feeling. I drove into the night, traveling an old dirt road that got too close to the cliffside and the ocean below. I finally stopped when my headlights shined on a faded white sign on the side of the road. Welcome to Newford, it read. I remember laughing at it. It was just so ordinary. Why does it have to look so ordinary? Why can't for once the damn sign say, Hey, you unlucky bastard! Welcome to the mouth of hell! I headed up the road. Ended up parking my car in an old barn outside of town. Got my piece from the glove box as I was slapping a fresh mag into the pistol and checking the sights. I spotted the second car. It was placed in the corner under a tarp covered in junk. I moved the tarp. The car was covered in rust and dust, and the wheels were missing. I looked in the back seat. I saw a blue and pink car seat, the fluff innards cut open like the guts of a wild animal. Dark stains running down what was left of the material. I was only planning on taking a couple magazines, but decided for the third. I stored everything in my jacket pockets and headed towards town. The sun was rising by the time I got close to Newford. I could see the black skeleton of old St. Mary's Blood in the distance. It was the tallest building for miles. The rest of the town was short, hugging the rolling hills and curves that came with this part of the country. It was almost like a mirage as it came into the light of the sun. Or was it that all the darkness just scuttled back into the depths of the town? It didn't look right. I know that's kind of hard to articulate, especially in our line of work. But it just didn't look right, like a painting that's slightly tilted or a misheard word or a missaid phrase. The sight of it just irked my brain. It irked anyone's brain, I imagine. Enough to madness? Well, you and I are made of thicker stuff, Adam. I headed in. The dirt road turned to smooth pavement just as I got into town. The traffic lines were whittled away to faint paint marks on the cracked asphalt. A few of the buildings on the outskirts of the town looked like they'd been torched or broken into. I went to one of them and looked through the main window. Glass shards splintered the living room. Room itself looked like it hadn't had any updates since at least the 50s, if not longer than that. I walked further up the road, getting deeper into the mouth of hell. Sorry. I just heard myself. The mouth of hell. It wasn't that bad, really. It felt more like a ghost town than some damn place. After about 5 or so minutes of walking through mostly empty streets, I was starting to get the feeling that Dell had been wrong. That is, until I saw the naked woman come strolling out of her house, pick up a paper, notice me, and give me a wave and a smile. I waved back at her, by the way, and tried not to stare at her tits. She looked maybe 30, skinny. Her skin wasn't wrinkled, but it was tanned.
Hello,
she called. I was like a few yards away and had no intention on getting any closer than I already was. Hey, I called back.
New in town?
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's been ever so long since we've had newcomers. I believe the last person was Jackson. Oh, I must introduce you to.
Where is everyone?
Why?
I could hear her laughing.
Asleep, sir? It is morning.
That's true.
What brings you to Newford?
Bit of sightseeing, but I must confess. Heard tell of a man, a preacher in black. Apparently his sermons are life-changing. Thought I might pay him a visit, get some counsel and all. I could see her smile at him. From so far away I could see it. It was wrong. Too big, too black. She clapped.
You've come to see the preacher. That's so good. You'll be attending tonight's service, won't you?
I can't make promises, ma'am. Though I don't know exactly where the church is. I was told it was by the beach.
Oh yes. Just keep heading down this road. Once you reach that horrid burnt house of lies, take a sharp right down Millhouse Road and it'll take you straight to the beach.
She just smiled and stared at me. Now her face seemed wrong.
I could show you the way.
She took a step forward. I felt my heart skip a beat and my legs move backwards. You have to understand, Adam. Her face, her smile. It was all wrong, like it was an optical illusion. Like if she came any closer, her head would get bigger. That her mouth was big enough to swallow me whole. I don't know what face I put on, but whatever it was, it made her turn her head slightly. The way a dog might when it's confused. Her smile never went away. So far, so wrong. I put on my own smile and tried to relax as my heart drummed a beat through my blood. My tattoo was itching fierce. That's okay, ma'am, I said. I can find the way. Like I said, I'm a bit of a sightseer. I like to discover a place on my own. The woman smiled.
Quite the adventurer. Well, don't let me stop you.
She turned to leave, but swiftly turned around.
I expect to see you at tonight's service.
Her eyes. Adam. They weren't right. It wasn't the color. They were blue. But there was something else. They were wrong. Something in me told me they were wrong, and more than that I felt a great dread wash over me. She wasn't asking me to come. She was telling me to be there. I smiled and waved. and then I turned down the road and prayed she wasn't following. I followed the lady's instructions and walked up the road. I found the town odd. Up close, its wrongness was truly on display. The building seemed warped, nothing too crazy. It was small stuff. A cracked window, a mailbox turned towards the house instead of the road. The sidewalks were the most revealing. They were truly warped. Like frozen waves as I got closer to the church. St. Mary's blood set in the heart of Newford. The only thing that remained were the church's vaulted ceiling and the pillars that held it up. It looked like the ribcage of some black skeleton. I got closer, placing my hand on the desiccated wood. Stepping past the twin pillars, I could feel a charge in the air. The ground was dry, like no rain had touched the place in centuries. There was still a smell of smoke in the air. Looking around, I stopped in my tracks. A priest sat on the petrified mound that had once been the pulpit. His hair was gray, and his vestments were splotched with gray ash. His eyes were distant, and his right cheek was freshly red with burns. "Hello," I said, taking a step forward. The priest's eyes turned on me. He looked young and wore round glasses. Brown strings of hair clung to a sweaty forehead.
"Have you heard the story of God's 7 daughters?"
The priest said. "I thought he only had the one son," I said. The priest shook his head, his expression blank.
He was a charlatan. God sent down 7 daughters. One was bashed in the head with a rock. One was thrown from a cliff. One was burned at the stake for witchcraft. One was drowned. One was hanged. One was shot. But the last yet lives, but she will die, and when she does, the sisters' 4 brothers will rise from hell. One will dress in red and carry a sword. When men see him, they will go into a mad rage and rend the blood from one another. One will dress in yellow and carry a bow. Wherever his arrow lands, sickness will spew from the earth and bring pain and pestilence with no end. One will dress in blue, and he will have a mirror. All those who look at the mirror will fall into a great, hopeless misery. The last will come in black. His eyes will be black, and all those who look upon him will die.
The man stood and disappeared before reappearing next to me. I jumped away. The tattoo felt hot on my skin.
"You're like him,"
He said. He smelled like black burnt bacon.
"A sapling, an egg yet ready to hatch."
"I'm nothing like that man." I said the words, Adam, but I was full of it. Knowing you, you wouldn't have said a word.
"You are still blind." "I was blind, but now I see."
"Why did you burn down the church?" The priest smiled.
"Because it was a lie. All of it. I tried to fight him, you know. Towards the end, I tried to fight. I put on my robes, I said my prayers, and I went to the beach. The preacher was waiting for me. Him, the drunk, and the harlot. They were waiting. We fought for days, the sun rising and falling. I said 1,000 prayers, and they whispered in my ear like the serpent did to Eve in the garden. My words drove off the drunk and the harlot, but the preacher was stronger, far stronger than me. The longer we fought, the more I began to listen. There was a God. It is a cruel creature that takes delight in our despair and confusion. It looks on our world not with a smile, but with indifference. When I realized it, all my fears and hopes went away. I felt both baptized and drowned. I returned here and gave my final sermon.
He looked around.
It burned easier than I thought it would.
Was it worth it? I said after so much silence. The priest looked up at the black ribs of the church, and then he vanished. I left the church and made my way towards the beach. Along the way, I passed a dozen more people. Some were strange. The strangest were the seemingly normal-looking people. A couple walking hand in hand on the street. A few children playing hopscotch. They wore clothes right out of the Andy Griffith Show. I was a man out of time, but no one looked at me as such. Those few who looked my way gave a smile and a wave. I saw other things. A body laying across the street and sidewalk, his toothy smile only visible because the skin had dried and shrunken. A man howling like a dog. I saw worse. They put a stake in the front yard. I tried. They were just too far gone. It doesn't matter. I made it to the beach. The sun reflected off the water as the swell came in. In that light, the sand appeared as gray as ash to me. I walked along the beach, trying to keep from falling until I made it to the preacher's church. It was a ghoulish edifice. The walls were made of rusted sheet metal and car hoods. The triangular roof was made of driftwood. It was humbled compared to what St. Mary's blood had been, but thinking about it now, it'd be better to call it for what it was. A parasite, one that was slowly subsisting off the sanity of the town. I walk into the shadow, just before the hatchet-cut driftwood door, the sound of the surf washing in. I took a deep breath before I pushed my way in. Shafts of light crisscrossed from narrow windows along the walls, meeting a central point at the head of the pulpit. In front of the pulpit was a table that oozed stalagmites of waxes from the 100 candles that burned silently. I could feel the tattoo burning as well. Chairs of different make had been brought in to form several pews. I walked down the central aisle, old wood smelling of sweet musk. Sitting at the head of the two pews was a man and woman. The woman sat on the right. Her hands were clutched together as she whispered oily prayers. The man took a swig of vodka from his bottle before belching. I stopped between the two. Pinned to the flat of the pulpit was the yellowing skeleton of a cat. It was perfect, the bones almost embedded into the driftwood. It stared back at me with hollow eyes.
"Cat got your tongue,"
the woman said. She had black bags under her eyes, and even blacker freckles. Her body was slender, and she wore a blue dress. Her smile was wrong, but I bared it. I matched her smile with my own. "I'm here to speak to the preacher." The drunkard belched, and it was like he let out a cloud of crap.
"The preach ain't here."
"Too bad. You know when he'll be back?"
"Why so eager?"
the harlot said. She took a step towards me. I took a step back, placing my hand in my pocket where my gun waited to do its work. The woman grinned.
"Use it."
I didn't say anything, but I was tempted. I don't know how she knew. Perhaps things like us can sense that kind of thing. My hesitation only made her smile grow broader and wronger. She took another step forward.
"Use it."
She rubbed her stomach.
"Right here. Stick it in me."
"You got a death wish, lady?" I said.
"No, I just wish. I've never been shot."
It's not a good feeling.
But it is a feeling. We're human. All we want is to feel. Desire is our raison d'être.
The drunk burped again. A cloud of green smoke came out. I covered my mouth with my arm. The woman hadn't stopped walking towards me.
"Use it."
Her words slithered across my soul.
That's why you came here. That's all you desire. You want to see me bloody on the ground. You want to step over my corpse triumphant.
She ran her hand down her body.
I can feel it oozing out of you like so much white life. It's intoxicating. Death's your calling. You want it more than me. Need it really? It sustains you.
My finger was on the trigger, Adam. It called to me the way a fine girl might call you to bed. I wanted to do it. I wanted to pull my gun and unload on her, feel her blood splash on me, and enjoy ending this wicked thing before me. I could feel its hooks digging into my soul, pulling me down with sweet whispers. "It's okay," the whispers said. "She deserves it. There's no telling what miseries she's wrought. So what if you enjoy it? What's so wrong with that? You remember the couple back in Idaho, their mangled bodies entwined like some art piece? Or the little boy on the beach? You couldn't even find all his parts. You dispatched their killers with dispassionate efficiency. You'd wanted to smile. Take delight in their deaths, but you never did. Too afraid of the edge of the abyss. I had my gun out before I knew it. No. Taking it out had felt so good, I hadn't thought about it. My gun was aimed at her wrong smile. My finger slipped over the trigger. I could feel the pull into the abyss. It felt good, like hands pulling me closer and closer to something that felt both warm and undefined. With one pull of my finger, I knew I would experience an ecstasy that was insurmountable. What stopped me was the drunk. He smashed his bottle and in a mad dash came at me with the broken remains. I fired 5 times. The man fell. By the time I looked up, the woman was gone. I heard the squeak of the driftwood door slam against the outside of the church. I looked down at the drunk. He'd flipped onto his back and looked up at me with a bloody grin.
"You looking down on me, boy?"
He ran his hand across the quickly growing pool of his own blood and let it drip onto a long, snaking tongue.
"I taste good."
He sat up. A man shot 5 times isn't meant to get up, but he did. He stood and held his bloody palm up towards me.
"Drink,"
he said.
"He that eateth of my flesh, and drinketh my blood, dwelleth in me, and I in him."
I ran. I didn't stop running until I reached the remains of the church. I panted, one hand on the black rib for support, the other still clutching the gun. I almost fell, Adam. Can you believe it? I've never come that close before. I'd heard the stories. I never understood how any of us could become like that. So warped. But I almost fell. It's not something that you see coming. It's slow. Creeps up on you like a mosquito. Before you realize it's there, it's already gotten a taste for you. The sun was in the sky. I took shelter in the church, sitting against one of the blackened pillars.
"What ails you, my son?"
the priest said. He stood over me, hands folded in front of him. I remember how he blocked the light of the sun with his body. How did he do that? I looked at the gun in my hand and said, "Was it worth it, Father? Being stuck here for all eternity?"
"One does not seek damnation, my son. It finds us. It tests us. And we either succeed or we fail."
I haven't failed. Not since I started this.
"You are not tied to this place, my son. The wickedness that confounds this town is not a cancer, but an ugly, benign growth. You can quit this quest as easily as a bird."
He pointed up to a gull that flew overhead. I really could leave. There was nothing stopping me from going to my car and driving home. The town wanted me to leave, to have the memory of its sickness branded into my brain until the end of my days. A sick joke. I got angry at that. That's what we do. That's what we are. We do not hate the evil we confront. Hate is too simple. We spite it. We loathe it more than any other that encounters it. It's like we're intolerant to it. I don't know why. I doubt even you know, Adam. I asked the priest, Can I make a confession?
Are you Catholic?
Was raised Methodist, but I've become atheist as of late. The priest smiled.
And so have I. There's a joke somewhere in this whole mess.
He laughed. We laughed together for a while. When the wind blew through the old wood, the priest spoke up again.
Tell me your woes, my son.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sins.
What is your sin, my son?
I allowed fear and temptation to stop me from doing my duty. I allowed my feet to make me run. I lacked the strength to do what I must do.
And what is it that you must do, my son?
Cleanse this place. The gull cried overhead.
Do what you must do, my son.
It's strange how we can do things when commanded. I ejected the used magazine from my gun, trading it for one of the fresh ones that I slapped into place. I looked at the tattoo on the back of my right hand. The skin looked almost red where I'd been scratching it. I stood up and went to leave. The priest told me to wait until nightfall. For a moment, I thought to ask why, but then I remembered what the naked lady had told me. Night came like a weight from a high place. I barely noticed twilight. When I looked up, I could see the people coming down the slope from town and walking up the beach towards the driftwood church. I'd taken up position down the beach at the foot of a bluff. I could see them all, the small gang of children whose faces were dry with blood, the couple who'd sewn their hands together. There was something else. It looked like a man, but he was far too tall and far too skinny, a wrong man. It had no eyes, but it turned its head back to look at me and smiled. I didn't hide. I sat on a rock, salty mist occasionally coming up to wet the side of my face. Eventually, the slim giant ducked its head low to get into the church. Once he was in, I saw two figures talk by the open door. It was the drunk and the harlot. I could hear words exchanged on the wind. Were they yelling or were they laughing? I honestly don't know. I keep replaying those sounds over and over, even now. Were they arguing with each other? Or were they laughing? Funny what the mind fixates on, isn't it, Adam? Once the drunk and the harlot entered the church, I waited and waited and waited. I wanted the preacher, the source of it all. I waited for an hour. The sound of the crashing waves kept me company. The longer I waited, the more I thought about the drunk and the harlot. Had they been arguing or laughing, arguing or laughing? It was like an itch I couldn't scratch. I left my rock and made the slow trek across the sand. As I grew closer to the church, I began to hear chanting.
We are great. We are loved. We are great. We are loved. We are great. We are loved.
It was a drone that felt preternatural. It mixed with the crashing waves. Honestly, the sound seemed to make the waves. Light emanated from the cracks in the driftwood, casting shadows long onto the sand. The shadows were wrong. They were like tendrils or flames, writhing in unnatural patterns. There was something beyond the walls of the driftwood church. I knew it couldn't be so, but there was something there. The chanting had sped up.
We're great. We're loved. We're great. We're loved.
Dozens of voices conjoined in exultation. The shadows at my feet twisted, and when my body came into contact with them, I could almost feel hands, fingers, and other things touching me. I gritted my teeth and made my way towards the door. I found a piece of 2x4 wood and braced it against the ground and underneath the doorknob. I could feel a heat on my face, like a furnace that wasn't there. I put my hand on the old dry driftwood door and saw the flame tattoo on the back of my hand. I never told you where I got the tattoo from. I know you don't like them, but the Weird Sisters do good work. It's strange to find people so submerged in this world who haven't succumbed to its maddening pull. The sisters are better than us in that way, Adam. We hate the darkness, but they don't thrive in it. It's a part of them. They accept it in a way we can't. They see the underlining chaos of our world and pull order from it. The tattoo was a piece of that order. They had turned my skin into a canvas in which they could freeze the disorder of the world. I unleashed it, Adam. It was like I'd been holding back a flood without even realizing it. As the black flame on my hand disappeared, fire engulfed the church. It wasn't slow. All at once the thing burst into flames and lit up the night. The heat that I'd felt before was pale in comparison to the inferno that sat before me. I stumbled back and fell into the sand. The shadows born squirmed harder. They kept praying, Adam, we're great, we're loved. We're great, we're loved. They screamed it. Their voices turned into terrifying howls before morphing into something else.
They have gone beyond,
A voice said. I jumped up and aimed my gun at the dark figure that stood behind me. My shadow hid his form, the waving light flickering off to the sides, forming a sinister set of wings. His toothy smile lit the darkness, and his black eyes sucked the light like two black holes. He wore a black suit from the collar down to polished shoes. He didn't look wrong. The preacher spread his arms out wide.
Rejoice in their misery, my brother, for your mission is complete.
He sounded like a southern preacher. I've never seen a man of God so happy to see his whole congregation go up in smoke.
But they are not gone, my brother.
He stepped forward, but I moved back, the heat of the fire growing at my back. The man smiled, and it was a nice smile.
Fear not, brother, for you are incapable of that. No. I, who once walked the same road as you, know that you are not defined by fear, hate, loathing. If we are creatures of sin, then, brother, your deadliest sin would be wrath. We are consumed by wrath, that oh so potent opium whose hot delights bring succor to our impoverished souls.
Drool dripped from his mouth. He wiped his grin with the back of his hand.
but other things can nourish the soul. Other delights.
You're sick.
Sick!
His eyes grew large and wrong, but his smile was normal.
How can I be sick when I feel so alive? No, brother. I am not sick. I am well.
Because you gave up!
No!
His smile faded for a moment before it returned to full bloom. His smile was wrong now.
No. I used to think I am more happy than I ever was.
He started walking towards me.
Life is full of things that once scared and frightened me, but I overcame them. I ate them, devoured them as they screamed and begged for mercy.
Stay back! I shouted. Why did I warn him? What was the point? Did killing those in the church drain me of my hatred? Had the preacher been counting on it? I doubt it. Things like him don't act on reason but instinct. I fired. He was so fast, Adam. No human could move like that. He moved through the flashes of my gunfire as though he froze in the brief respite of darkness before he reappeared. Always closer, always grinning like a mad man. I should have moved, but I didn't. He was so fast, like a ghost. You know I hate ghosts. My gun went dry. I ejected the magazine, but before I could put in a fresh mag, he was on me. He grabbed me by the collar of my jacket. I slipped out of the jacket. I fought him, kicking and punching. He was so fast. He was toying with me. It was like I was fighting air. Like I was trying to fight a ghost. You know I hate ghosts. That's when I remembered. He'd tossed me into the ocean by then. Not sure what led up to that, but I remember coming up in knee-deep water. the preacher wading in after me. I pulled myself around him and got back onto the beach, my clothes soaked and feeling twice as heavy. I had to get away, had to run. End the end, beyond hate and loathing. When it comes to living, survival doesn't care which path you take, so long as you take a path. I ran into Newford. The town that I had so thoroughly cleansed and silently hated was the maze I took my rest in.
You cannot hide from me, little brother,
the preacher said. I was in the street, head still in a daze. The only light was the pale light of the moon. I remember thinking in that moment, wasn't I at home, watching my little cousin playing the game? Not many of us have family to go back to, you know. I'm one of the few. I think I'm the only one, really. The rest of you live out of inns or cars. I actually have a place with roots. I ran for my life. I ran towards the church, falling to my knees in the dust just before the pulpit. I was out of breath, out of time. I heard the preacher's footsteps on the dirt behind me. I looked over my shoulder and saw him. The preacher looked around at the remnants of the church and smiled.
The God of man has no sway here, brother.
He came forward. The priest appeared between me and the preacher with a gust of dusty wind. The preacher smiled like the Cheshire Cat from Wonderland.
You're still kicking around here?
I couldn't see the priest's face, but I imagine it was stalwart, as stark as the day he went to the beach to face the preacher the first time. Without a second word, the priest moved forward, placing his whole arm through the preacher's chest. The preacher gagged like he was choking.
Holy Father,
the priest said,
strike down this wicked thing. Let your divine light wash away this sinful, revolting creature.
The preacher smiled at that and grabbed the priest's arm.
God is an ugly thing, Jacob. Did you forget what I taught you?
The preacher pulled the ghost arm from his body.
I did not forget, you vile demon. And you're not wrong. God cares little for we sinful creatures. He watches us with glee, growing fat on our failure and heartache. But I had a thought. If what you said is true, if God only loves us so that he can watch us suffer, how does he feel when he sees something so monstrous, something so vile die in the moments before it thinks it's triumphed?
Just then I rammed a sharp piece of blackened 2x4 into the preacher's back. The town screamed, "Adam!" It was low, but the town shook. Every window rattled, every door opened and closed, every light turned on and burnt itself out. I stepped away, leaving the wood sticking out of the back of the preacher. The priest stepped back as well. If a ghost could sweat, he'd be soaked. The preacher flailed his arms in some strange, delayed attempt at hitting me. The preacher smiled at me, and this time the smile wasn't wrong. It was very human. Human, bitter, and resigned. The preacher turned to the priest and gave a 2-finger salute before he limped his way out of the church towards the beach. I watched him go for a time before I looked at the priest, a man who had once been called Jacob. We didn't exchange words. I left him there and followed the preacher.
You stabbed me in the back,
the preacher said. We'd made it back to the beach. The sky was turning a shade of gray, and on the horizon, the sun was peeking its head up over the water.
Not a very noble thing to do?
The preacher was on his knees, the water lapping up against his pants. I plopped down in the sand next to my jacket. Through all the fighting and running, I never lost my gun. I retrieved the spare magazine from my jacket and placed it into its proper place, racked the slide back before aiming at the back of the preacher's head.
Would you look at that sunrise?
The preacher said. I did, Adam. I took my eyes off the preacher, and I looked at the sun. It was glorious, just up there shining. It was quiet, so quiet as it rose. like someone was pulling a string on it. When I looked back down, finger ready to squeeze the trigger, the preacher was gone. I stood up. There was a lot of dried blood where he'd sat. I got him good, Adam. I know I did. I could hear bones breaking and meat tearing when I stabbed him. I got him. I know I did, but you know what Lilith used to say. Double tap, otherwise they'll haunt your dreams. I went back to the church. The priest was waiting for me in front of the pulpit. He stood in his vestments. We looked at each other and spared no words. You know you don't need the bones of a ghost to free them. A bound soul can be freed if the place they are housed in is desecrated or otherwise demolished. I went to one of the pillars holding up the vestiges of the vaulted ceiling and pushed on it. It wasn't as heavy as I thought. The wood groaned as it was unmoored from the earth. I looked at the priest moments before the ceiling came down. He didn't look happy, but he didn't look sad either. You take the silver linings where you find them. Right, Adam?